audience to another live of SED, School of Entrepreneurship Development. Today, I'm your host, Kazi Hafsajahan, a student of University of Dhaka and the project coordinator of School of Entrepreneurship Development. Today, we have Miss Maria, the administrative officer at American Councils for International Education. So, hello, ma'am. How are you?
Hello, I'm very happy to be here and very happy to have a chance to talk a bit about my experience and whatnot with our audience. Thank you for having me today.
We were really excited to have you. So, I have some questions for you. So, the first one is during your student life, what key skills did you intentionally focus on developing?
Well, since I started to be a teacher, I mainly focused on developing various teaching skills. My degree is in teaching German and English as foreign languages for my bachelor's. And right now I'm finalizing my master's degree in translation and conference interpretation. For this specific one, I, of course, focused on subject-related matters, such as being a good translator and a good interpreter. But besides that, of course, I focus on developing personal skills, such as leadership skills and management skills, which now helps me a lot in my main job. An example of this could be the following. Since I studied in Moldova, we do have this special thing about our classes that we usually have a group leader, like the whole classroom leader, if I can put it this way, that takes care of administrative matters, make sure that if there is a reschedulement of class or something of that kind, this is well known by the students and the teachers, and solves all those logistics matters. So I have been this kind of group leader both at my bachelor's and at my master's degree, and this is a great opportunity to develop your leadership skills and communication skills, making sure that everyone is in those places where they're supposed to be at the times when they're supposed to be. And of course, I have been very much looking into developing my AI skills these past few years, maybe not so much during my bachelor's years, but definitely during my master's years, because these days AI is an indispensable part of our day-to-day life and activity. Of course, I am not using it to do my homework assignments. That would be cheating, and that's academically unacceptable. But I do use it to plan my time well. I do use it to suggest me ideas for research. I do use it to help me develop healthy studying routines and whatnot. So I would say those are the skills I have been specifically focused on developing.
Yeah, the AI one is very interesting and relevant. So, which AI tools do you usually use and suggest the students to use as well, and for what purpose?
All right, so I mainly use ChatGPT. I think as most of us, I do use Claude as well. I mainly use ChatGPT for some general stuff, like help me plan my activity, or I don't know, read this presentation, pull out the main facts for me. But something more in depth, something more focused, for example, like if I need to run some statistics or something of that kind, I usually use Claude's functions for that, because Claude is far more advanced in actually working with statistical data and things of that kind. Claude is also actually really good at suggesting you materials to read upon if you're interested in a specific topic. That is, if you have a paid subscription, but I think this is the best $20 I have spent on a monthly basis, so it's definitely worth it.
Okay, so apart from academic, in your extracurricular activities, which activities do you inspire students to do, like debating or business competitions?
Yeah, well, I would say that unfortunately in Moldova, this is not that widely and vastly developed at university level. We don't really have that many extracurricular activities at our universities. We do have student council, but I have never been part of it, mainly because I've been on 2 student exchanges during my bachelor's and I would not be able to attend the sessions. So I was like, okay, I'm just going to focus on going on an exchange. So of course, I am not sure if you can count an exchange program such as Erasmus or something of that kind, an extracurricular activity. But if you do, please go for it, because this is an incredible opportunity to get out, see the world, travel, and do it for free, which is important when you're a student. I would mention the opportunity of volunteering, which we do have in Moldova. I have volunteered a lot during my bachelor's years, less during my master's, because, well, I'm now a full-time employee, so I don't really have that much time for that kind of stuff. But volunteering is a great thing to do at all times. I have been volunteering at the Republican Volunteer Center in Moldova, and I have also been actively involved within the Flex alumni community, of which program I am a proud alumna. Flex is a 1-year high school program with which you can go and study in the United States for free. I believe for the area in which your project is working, an alternative is YES program, Youth Exchange and Study. I know that right now at this moment it's on pause, but whenever it comes back, please do apply if you have high school relatives or something of that kind, or if you yourselves listening to us are high school kids, please do consider that because it's a great opportunity.
Okay, so what mistakes or gap do you now realize students often overlook during their university life?
Well, it really depends on the situation. I mean, I've seen quite a few very strange cases as a university teacher at this point because besides working for American councils, I also teach a bit at Moldova State University. I came back to my alma mater to some extent to now teach there. And I would say that one of the main mistakes that I see is the fact that students sometimes combine work and studies, and that's wonderful, but it's really difficult to keep a balance between the two. So if you do make the decision of combining work and studies, you have to make sure that you are keeping a good balance. You make sure that neither your studies nor your work are somehow negatively affected by each other. It is very difficult. I'm not saying this is easy. As a person that has worked since the very first day of my university studies, I can say that this is a difficult thing to do. But if you do have to do this, do make sure that you plan well, do make sure that you analyze your priorities and you decide on what is more important, what is less important for you, and at the same time you don't burn out. Another thing that I think I'm guilty of as well, just like everyone else, is procrastination and leaving things until the last minute. I'm not gonna lie, there have been times when I was submitting things like 5 minutes before the deadline, and I always tell myself that this is a horrible thing to do and I should plan better. Do I always follow this wonderful piece of advice? No. But I'm trying my best, and what has helped me in that specific regard is actually writing out detailed plans of like when I'm going to submit what and when I'm going to study for what. And this way, specifically this year, for example, in my second year of master's studies, I was able to submit everything, all of the assignments I have had so far, at least 1 week in advance prior to the deadline. And I'm very proud of this accomplishment. It took me 5 years to learn, but it's doable.
Okay, so as you are already in your professional world, what do you think is the biggest skill gap you faced?
Well, in my specific case, I guess I have been very fortunate with having the opportunity to develop my work skills ever since I started university, because I started working at the same time. So when I got my full-time job that I'm now in, being the administrative officer, which happened in the summer of 2024. Yes, 2024, time flies. It's been more than a year and a half. I think I was pretty well equipped. Maybe what was missing and what I haven't quite experienced so much is this extensive communication with various stakeholders. Because at university, I mean, you communicate with your classmates, you communicate with your professors, that's it. And you don't really have experience of communicating with various people at various times, keeping like all of these communication flows active and to the point, and making sure that you get the responses that you need and whatnot. But other than that, I think I was pretty well equipped, mainly because of my work experience as well, I think.
Okay, so has it ever happened to you that you realized that I should have learned this skill before in my
Mm,
early ages?
I mean, I would say that if I could go back 5 years in life, I would probably start using artificial intelligence a bit earlier, because I was very hesitant about it and only started actually trying to play around it in 2024, while it was already up and running like since the beginning of 2023. I think if I had a chance to go back in time, I would probably try to explore it a bit more and learn more about it. I would also say that some design skills would be really helpful. I haven't never really had a need for design skills, but sometimes at random times you have to do something. And I mean, Canva is a lifesaver, but being able to do something that is a bit more advanced, I think would also be very nice. Other than that, I would say that the skill that I have not really been able to develop for university is actually a practical hands-on approach to teaching, let's say, when it comes to my studies specialty, but I was able to do that for work experience. And I would say that even if unfortunately, due to whatever reason, you cannot really get the skill that you wish to get at university while studying, do go out and look for an internship or an opportunity to work part-time in the domain of your dreams and interests, because, well, that's a great place to start learning. Of course, you will not get an executive level position at this point, but we have to start small, and that's perfectly fine.
Okay, so how did your role evolve from project level work to leadership and administration?
Well, it's been quite a steady path, I should say. My very first work experience was being a project assistant at Moldova Connect. That was a program by American councils working with all alumni of all USG programs, like Fulbright, Flex, Suzy, like all of them. There is more than 26. And so I was, of course, doing just some admin tasks, organizing events, making sure people come in and they are on time, doing correspondence, that kind of stuff, running lives on StreamYard, just like what our wonderful host of the event is doing right now. And then gradually, I managed teams of volunteers that were helping us out for large events, such as events that included more than 200 people in person with the attendance of U.S. Embassy workers and whatnot. Then I was a coordinator of a workshop for a Moldovan office, and this is how gradually, step by step, I grew in my role and developed those leadership skills that are now used on a daily basis as the manager of the database assistance team for American councils.
Okay, so how do you approach managing teams and programs in an international context?
Well, what I try to do is I try to be the best manager I possibly can be. And for this, I do have some specific advice that really has helped me when I first started in this full time kind of management involving responsibility position. I have been advised to read a series of books that is literally called How to Be a Good Manager. I can share then like the name of the author and the series of podcasts that is available for related to this book with the organizing team, and they can put it in the comments after the event. I think this has turned my managing experience 180 degrees. I think I was a pretty decent manager prior to that, but having read this book and having listened to this podcast, I think I got a much better understanding of how a manager should be, and this has helped me a lot in my current position. I would say that the rule of thumb is to just be the manager you would want to have. Like be responsible and keep people accountable, at the same time not go overboard and not turn into a micromanager who people don't like working with, because you have to trust your team, you have to put your trust into your team. At the same time, you do have to keep things under control, because if you don't control anything, if you don't worry about anything, you're just like, okay, I'm gonna give a task, I don't care how people are gonna understand it, I don't care what they're gonna do, I'm just gonna give the task, because then the manager, the results will not be good. And last but not least, of course, it's the team that you manage that is important. You can be the best manager on this planet, but if your team is not good, you will not be successful. So, of course, choose well who you are working with, especially in volunteering projects or something of that kind. Make sure that you can trust your team and make sure that your team can trust you. I would say that this is the main piece of advice.
Okay, so in this global competitive world, what are three interpersonal skills a student must develop?
Of course, it's communication skills, being able to communicate clearly and efficiently and being able to get the point across. I would say that another skill is being able to understand others and walk in their shoes. This is difficult, but this is something that is also very important. And last but not least is being able to be competitive in a good way, because just going above people's heads is no good. Nobody likes that kind of colleague. Nobody wants to work with that kind of colleague. But at the same time, knowing your worth and being able to present you well and being happy with a bit of competition, because, well, competition is how we grow, competition is how we improve, is something that should be developed in a student as well, I would say.
Okay, so how can students engage effectively with volunteering activities to develop skills? And why is it important?
Well, I would say that really depends on your country situation. I'm not sure what's going on in the countries where you live, and I'm not sure if I can give a very specific advice for each specific situation. But some general points that I would like to mention are: make sure that you volunteer for a cause that motivates you, because then it's exciting. Do look for volunteering opportunities. Ask your friends, talk with your university colleagues, see if anybody knows a place where you can help. And of course, last but not least, if there is nothing available, why don't you start a volunteering opportunity yourself? Gather with a team of people. There are always places and people and entities that need your help, and it really gives you a lot of joy. Besides, of course, all of the professional experience and whatnot that you get throughout this process.
Okay, so what steps should a students initially start taking in order to get a better career after graduation?
I would advise getting internships and getting hands-on work experience while you're studying. Of course, it's almost close to impossible to be working full-time, and I would not advise that while you're doing your bachelor's. With master's, that's a different story. But do look for internships in the domain of your interest. Do apply for those, and don't be afraid to apply. It's better to apply and not to be accepted than to avoid applying and then spend you the rest of your life wondering, what if I was selected? Do go ahead, do apply, do get involved in various opportunities of that kind, especially in the domain of your interest. Sometimes you might be even asked to stay on and continue working within the same company, within the same entity. This is a case of a former colleague of mine. She was doing an internship at like the trade ministry or something in the country where she's based. And after the internship, she was so good that she stayed there as a junior trade specialist. And it's a super international department. She gets lots of travel opportunities, set aside a very good salary, which she's extremely happy about. Why did she get that? Because she really showed herself as a great colleague, as a great employee during her internship. She was proactive. She suggested ideas for improvement of the department and all that good stuff. And that's why now she enjoys this wonderful full-time job.
Okay, so as a woman, did you face any difficulty in the international environment due to gender biasness?
Well, I guess I have been very fortunate because most of my international involvement has been related to American councils, and American councils does not have that kind of issues. So I have never really struggled with the fact that I'm a woman in terms of getting the opportunities. I guess this also has to do with the fact that in Moldova, specifically teaching domain, the other area of my expertise, is predominantly dominated by women. Most teachers are female. So I guess maybe that's why I have been very fortunate in that regard. I'm not going to say that this doesn't exist. I know that these kinds of issues do exist and heavily affect situations in certain countries. But fortunately, to some extent, I guess, in Moldova, we are doing a pretty decent job in that regard. We still have space for improvement, but at this point in life, I have never had to struggle with any of that kind of issues. And I hope to never have to in the future as well. For those of you who are listening to me who happen to have a more unfortunate situation in your countries, I know this is tough. I cannot really do anything but to feel compassionate for you, but I'm sure that you will be able to achieve anything in spite of the obstacles and unfortunate circumstances. I guess the only example of like discrimination to some extent that I can bring was that when I was studying foreign languages, most of the students were female, so male students always got some sort of special treatment, like they had higher grades a bit and all of that, because well, it's one boy per 20 girls, and this sometimes leads teachers to assessing things in a slightly different manner than they should. But it is upsetting. I'm not going to say that I was particularly happy to see a person get a 10 out of 10 when they didn't really do much while I was slaving away at this research paper. At the same time, I always try to remind myself that I'm studying for myself, by myself, and my results are what matters, not anyone else's results.
Okay, so is there any suggestion that you would like to do, that you would like to give the women in order to be empowered in the future?
I would say that you have to know what your worth is, because, well, people can say all sorts of things. I used to live in a very small town when I was a teenager, and I have experienced like all sorts of comments and whatnot in the lines of, well, you're a woman, like, what are your dreams and aspirations? You have to get married and stay at home, kind of deal. And I'm sure that most of our listeners who are women can relate to that to some extent or have heard of stories that are similar. But we have to know what our worth is, and we have to work hard for our personal goals. And people may judge, and good for them, but this should not stop us from achieving our goals and from working hard for them. And of course, mental health counseling and therapy is always a good advice if you have an opportunity for that kind of treatment, if I can put it this way. It really does help. If not, just read up on some books on achieving your goals and all of that kind of stuff, and it really does help. I know like the things that I say are very basic, but really basic methods sometimes do help better than something very elaborate and intricate.
Okay, so could you please tell us whether there is any availability or any chance of at Moldova for Bangladeshi students?
Well, that I'm not sure about, but I know that Moldova has become a little bit more open to foreign students. We do have admissions for foreign students available at this point. I know that the process of getting like the residency permit for students is pretty transparent and available in English. this is a progress. And I can say that specifically at my university, we have quite a few students from other countries. We have a couple of Chinese students specifically at my department. I know China and Malaysia are two very different things, but it's still like Asian region, if can be put this way. And we do have students from various other countries at this point. And specifically, medical university is really popular with students from other countries. We have a lot of students from India, Pakistan, Bangladesh coming to study in Moldova, Israel as well. And I think with other universities, we are less popular because there aren't too many opportunities to study in English only. But still, it's available. And if you're interested, you can look into that. I would probably not advise it very, very, very strongly because, well, we're not a European Union country, so maybe you might want to explore something like Hungary or something of that kind. But still, why not?
Okay, so that was such an amazing session. Thank you so much, ma'am, for your valuable insights and time.
Of course.
We love to have you, and we are looking forward to have you again in future with us.
Okay, sounds good. I'm more than happy to come and help you out again and talk a little bit about my experience. Thanks everyone for listening, watching, and I will be sharing the resources I've mentioned about management with the managers, I guess, of the program, and they will be posting that online.
Okay, we will be sharing the resources with our students.
Wonderful.
Okay, so good. So that was it, everyone. I hope you all loved the session with us today. And thank you so much again, Miss Maria, for being with us.
It's my pleasure. Goodbye.